And hello to everyone. Trying to do show. Okay. So I'm gonna call the meeting to order, and the first item of business is we need to have secretary to take the minutes.
I think Frank is going to do that. Oh, right, Frank?
Unless someone else wants to.
No takers. It's all you, Frank.
Thank you for
All right.
Hi, Nick.
Yeah.
Hi, Sheila.
Yeah. Holly, I'd like to make my own recording of the meeting if that's possible.
That's fine.
Okay.
Hello, Helen. I'm starting to get all the faces to pop up. Okay. Sorry for being late. My laptop did not have Zoom installed. It's new to me. So thank you all for coming. I typically don't call special meetings, but we needed to discuss our HP funds. And first, I just want to quickly do a rundown on the event from last week. Or this week. We had allocated $4,500 to pay for this event, and we sent 26 people. Every seat was filled, and we spent $2,566. We'll just round up. I've received feedback from so many people, and we had guests from age 6 to
5.
Five. So I don't want to guess, but people in their 70s, early 80s. We had just such a diverse group of people. We had some local vendors from Somerville who are disabled who joined us, which was really nice. They weren't wearing badges. You may not have known who some of these people were. We had some people in our community who are advocates and work with the Democratic Convention. And sorry, Ingrid, I'm going to call you out. Your 2 little boys were the sweetest.
They had fun. They loved it.
They did. And guest Celtic, TD Garden has ambassadors, and I was able to get their assistance to bring us wheelchairs to meet us and to get us through security and our seats. And they on the fly provided Ingrid and her boys with accessible seats in another area, which unfortunately we weren't right next to each other, but they were on top of it. They were checking in with you. They were calling me. And from a picture I saw, those boys were treated to some ice cream, and they had some swag glasses on. And
yeah, they got bags full with t-shirts and buttons and bubbles and all sorts of first-time garden gifts that they took to school the next day, and they were so proud and excited, and they loved it. Yeah, it was so nice. It was amazing. They were awesome. The guest ambassadors walked us she held the boys' hands all the way to the Uber and got them in the car, and they were amazing. They were so awesome.
They were holding their hands and introducing themselves when we arrived, and as a group who needed some assistance, probably about a third of us. They just were so sweet, and I did thank them by phone, and then I sent a very long email to the corporate group and included the person who sold us the tickets, the man who runs all of the services, guest services, and I forgot who else. Just because I think it was very important to thank and recognize all of them. And that's just something I always do, whether it be in CVS and somebody helps me, or the head of the Boston Garden or whoever that was. So it was not a simple event. It had a lot of moving parts, and I was lucky that I had one of our guests who came early, staffing it, and sort of coordinating it was very difficult. But we got everyone in, and it's nice to hear that they helped to get into Uber with Ginny. Ginny attended, and they actually took us out in the snow and stood outside with us. And the gentleman from the garden helped her get into the cab. He folded up all of her wheelchair, and he insisted on lifting it into the trunk with me. He wouldn't leave until we knew the cab was all set and rode off. And I know that it's their jobs to do things, but I also felt that they're probably well trained, well respected, and just amazing people. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to give that update. And I have all of the paperwork right now. So the city is reviewing the finances, and they're reviewing activities like this just to make sure that we are spending these, what are considered municipal expenditures. And so at the moment, we are on hold with purchasing tickets to similar events. The reason I had originally called this meeting was to talk about the opportunity that we have to attend this year's Disability Pride event. And I think some of you may have been at that event last year. We did it very last minute. I only heard about it through the Commission on Disabilities monthly meeting. That's for all the cities and towns in the state. The city of Boston hosts this every year through their commission. I should say every year. It was their first year. So it was an activity that they do with their public, with their funds. And so there's like this new person who's in charge of our account for group tickets. And they were able to hold these incredible seats for us, which I don't remember how many seats we had last year. But this time, instead of maybe 6 or 7, I think I had 18 accessible seats, which, as Ingrid is smiling, you can be in a chair. You can have a companion that's sitting there. But we are going to hold off on moving forward on the process with the city. Yes, 68 tickets. And once we hear back on what our next steps are, I would like us to have a group of us that works on coordinating funding. I can't do it myself. And I know as much as all of you would jump in if I asked, I'm hoping we can sort of assimilate a team that can ensure we have the paperwork, that when we have an idea that, works through that process, that's a key person at the facility, that's collaborating with finance, just, following all the pieces that need to happen in our municipality. And once finance and the legal team speak with the Department of Justice, we're going to have, I think, better guidelines so that we don't get in a situation where we have to put something on hold, or where we're not, so that we're doing things the way they would like us to do, which is very important, that to all of us, that we are following their guidelines. So I was going to have us vote to put those funds for the game. I'm being told we have to, for now, put that on hold. So I'm just communicating to you how much the success of the Celtics and the opportunity of the Red Sox, and how we are working with the city and the finance team on next steps. As far as groups, I've spoken with Clerk Wells, and in order, any subcommittees, official subcommittees, other than when we did them for interviews and such, become public meetings. And they also become part of our bylaws. So in our bylaws, it states that we can have subcommittees, the chair appoints them, they can't be quorum, they report back to the full council. So I'm not sure, I'm going to check back with Kim. I believe some of the terms she suggested were not.
Excuse me, Holly, working group?
Sure.
A working group is another term that was spoken, I believe. This is Harriet.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I don't want to give it an official title. I want to make sure that we're following OML, but I'm just going to put it out there that I would like us, hopefully by the 13th, I'll have more information, that I would like each of you to think about how you would like to contribute ideas for how we stay organized and can execute events. There's been a lot of great ideas that we've thrown out, large city events, more public facing education, communicating with social media. One of my favorites was buying books for children about people who have disabilities. It talks about a child or a parent. And also, I think adult books or high school books that are on that topics that maybe our libraries or other groups within the city may also enjoy having.
Excuse me.
So, yes.
I'm sorry. This is my first meeting. That's why I wanted to attend it. Are we gonna have something like do we have something like a work plan?
I like that idea.
If we have a work plan, we need to come up with a work plan, an activity work plan. And then we know that maybe in between January and February, we're going to do such and such activities. And maybe from February to this, we're going to do such activities. And then relating those activities maybe to what we want to achieve, we come up with a goal. For example, would our goal be maybe inclusion? For example, if we are to work along inclusion, and then we said we need to push inclusion in sports or maybe recreation, such that things like attending to Boston Celtic games and other games would be looked as part of community inclusion, maybe through sports, and then we keep working towards like themes. Because one thing I saw with Boston Celtic game and the Red Sox game was good and we enjoyed, but there was something that was linking. We were not using it as like another way, a direct way to maybe to reach out to maybe to the maybe the management of Boston Celtics or any other, maybe like the TD Gardens that were working so well towards like maybe accessibility and the rest. So if at all, like on that day, there was like some little bit of engagement that will also exist. We are also part of the big maybe sports Celtic or anything, or Boston Red Sox and the rest. So if we can add on that, and then like, that's what I think. But it can only come through when we have like a working
Can't say working group, but
working
yes.
group, but before the working group, we need to have like a flowing arrangement of events that we're supposed to be doing, like a work plan.
So I think having ideas of things that we would like to do is the first start. And I miss the Microsoft project application because that always kept my brain straight. So maybe we'll look at, you can check in with Adrian if a Google Sheet that many of us can access, if that would be allowed, just to figure out how to collaborate. We can have conversations as individuals, as long as we are not meeting or discussing a topic that constitutes quorum. When we're in session, one second, Adrian, I'm sorry. I see your hand. When we're in a meeting and we've established quorum, that is a public meeting. And part of this process is always to bring the ideas and any discussion back to the group, not just for a communication update, but should we need to vote or move on an action. So I don't want anyone to misconstrue the city asking us to pause these activities. What they're doing is making sure that the process in place and the financials and how the money is being managed is the way it should. And part of that will be from legal, from finance, the guidelines, so that we know these are the things. And the other thing that is difficult for us and for the city is there are time frames to make payments that go through the process. And I have been told by Ed that at times they can turn a check over quickly, but events like the Celtics are on such short schedules. The tickets are in and they need in 3 or 4 weeks a deposit. And that's really hard for us. But that doesn't mean we can't find a mechanism with the city that will work that way. Again, within the construct that finance and our lawyer is going to define. So I know we all loved that event last year. That's where I met you, Rashid. And I know that we will be having future events like that, but we really just need to allow the finance department to work through that. And I think part of the issue isn't that we use tickets at an event, which clearly was about inclusion and celebration and brought so many different people that aren't part of our commission, but are part of our community together. I think the issue is more with funds being used for things like food and concessions and maybe even parking. And so if that is the concern or part of the issue, we certainly can work with that. And if there's an issue that comes up with the type of event or a ticketed event, then we're just going to talk through those things. So I just wanted everyone to know about that because those events, many of us have been to, are very important to us. Sorry, Adrian, please, you have the floor. I can't make this grow.
Through the chair. Thank you, Holly. That was a good explanation. One thing I do want to fill in is from a city perspective across the board in multiple departments, especially RSJ, everybody in the mayor's office, everybody is really excited that this commission has grown very quickly in a very short amount of time. There are now, what we say, 12 seats. There have been 12 appointments. And then there will be a process to open up the 13th seat. And that hasn't, I don't know, because I think it was before my time. The commission has not been really full, I think, for a very long time. And you all know that there's strength in numbers, and Holly's right. She certainly can't do it all on her own. I know Stephen, our deputy director, and myself helped best we could. I'm sorry I couldn't be there because I know I would have been a resource, but it was just, it conflicted with a personal obligation. With that said, Holly, you know, that's a great idea. However you form, whatever this group is going to be called within the confines of the legalese. I really don't like that word, but whatever.
It's okay, you can say that.
Is that it will be helpful to have a smaller group who's interested sort of in this backside of things that do have to happen to make these funds usable and tangible, I guess, for this group. And from the city side, as staff liaison, I will probably continue to be that point person, which is great. With that said, the other thing I just wanted to pass on is this pause really is about to make sure that the commission is protected, because when there are funds like this, I think some of you know, if you've served on other boards, and I know we have a couple commissioners now, and Helen and Sheila, who have previous city experience, You know, when we have boards and commissions, city council, city employees, you know, there's a fiscal responsibility element to this. And so the intent of our director of finance at Bain is just to make sure the commission is protected. Because that is the biggest goal of that department, is to make sure, you know, everybody, because there's so many rules and regulations out there. It's a rabbit, and I'm sure Sheila's nodding because of her previous experience. You think you know, and then there's another, or the DOR.
And I just
Yeah.
want to apologize. I did not mean to say that it wasn't staffed or that you weren't there. That was not my intention. And
I don't feel that way. And it was,
okay.
Stephen and I have talked, and it was like, this one seemed to be a little bit more complicated than the Red Sox game for some reason. I don't know why either. Stephen and I have had, and he's like, Adrian, there's so much. And I was like, the game was easy. Well, not easy, but it was, I don't know.
And also to recognize all of the work that Adrian and other members of the team did in front of that and during that. And even literally as people were arriving in the lobby, Stephen, myself, and my assistant, Dawn, were trying to manage a system with those electronic gift cards. And so there was a huge amount of work in there. And I really would like to acknowledge all that you did, Adrian, and all that everyone did that nobody sees. But today is really about just sharing that in a separate meeting. Nick, I did see you had a hand up earlier.
Did I?
I
don't
think
if I did, it was unintentional.
it might have been Mike.
Mike, did anyone have a question, or would anyone like to add?
I had one earlier, but I may have slipped away from me. I think it was just about, I'd like to separate two things. One of the things is we started brainstorming about different ways for community benefit of people with disabilities, with inclusion, and actually as topmost, and just which includes everything else, accessibility and knowledge of, and invitation to, you know. So this is something that we are privileged to have some funds to support everything from education, inclusion, and enjoyable projects like these game projects, which brings community together. Because I just want to make one statement: the more people with overt disabilities who are at a public event, the greater the awareness becomes for the so-called able-bodied, or we like to joke, temporarily able-bodied people, that we are a part of the community. And that publicness is extremely important. And my apologies, I'm really terrible at sports events. The noise is too much for me, but I hope to go to another event, you know, whatever. But, you know, this is just a view that I think we encompass as sort of a part of our mission. And I don't know, everybody else should obviously ring in on this, you know.
Would anyone else like to?
Polly?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment on the financial end of it. It's just true, municipal finance can be extremely complex, even for those of, you know, us that have worked in it, but it's also always an opportunity to find a way to make it work for the commission and for the finance department so that everything runs smoothly. And I'd be happy to help out in that way. You know, I do have some municipal finance experience and have kind of many times over my 30 years in finance, we often had to find different ways to manage different departments because they had different needs. Not everybody falls into the exact framework of how finances are set up in the community.
And this is all very new. What we do in this account, and it's mandated by the feds and the state and the Mass Office on Disability. And I've been reading Mass General Law about it. And so yes, I would love your help with that. I think
I'd be
Rashid-
happy to help with whatever,
Thank
whatever you
that.
need.
Thank you. And you know, things change over time. And this isn't because the city or finance or Ed Bean, he's fantastic, or the legal department doesn't want to support us. It's that they're just like Adrian said, they're not just protecting themselves, they're protecting us. So thank you. And Rashid, I'm probably going to call you to talk about maybe fleshing out like a work plan or some guidance. I might even reach out to others in the commission in the next few days just to talk about other topics. Again, anything that we sort of think about will be brought back to the meeting on the 13th.
I'm available.
Pardon?
I'll be available. Like we can first come up with like a draft, maybe work plan, and then we show it to the members. They make like add-ins and maybe remove something that they think that will not do it. Yeah, I'm available. I'll be available.
Thank you. And I promise this was going to be just a 30-minute meeting. March isn't charged. So I'm just going to try to keep it to a few more minutes. You'll all realize I'm never on time. I'm late and I'm always over. I actually have to trick myself on my calendar and put things that they're 15 minutes earlier than they really are. So there's my fault. Now that we're big and beautiful and wonderful and have so many fabulous members, it's going really hard to have a meeting in 2 hours and make sure we have lots of input and that we have time to ask a lot of questions. And I myself, when I first joined the commission, had found it really hard to, absorb everything unless I did the pre-work. And so the meeting on the 13th has a whole boatload of documents. And the important ones are definitely going to be, some of them are informational, but there's some findings about in a hearing for variance request within the building code that will be a hearing that has information about a decision. And, we're gonna set up a lot of training this year, and things that'll be including in that are variances and other things, working on a training plan. But for now, if you could, I'll probably send a reminder on Monday. If you could please go online to the city calendar, you'll see our event posted for the 13th, and you'll see all the documents linked there. Do your best to read them. Please reach out to myself or Adrian or Harriet if you need help or clarity on anything, just so that we can make really good use of our time. There's a presentation in there. It's in 3 or 4 documents. It's a big PowerPoint presentation. It's beautiful. It's also an extraction of that sort of in text format for people who would like to just see it as bulleted or summarized. And then there's a version that's being embossed for our folks that are blind. So if people could go through and read that presentation, and then our guest will definitely speak to the messaging, which in the amount of time, it's important that the messaging and the information is shared and we're able to ask questions back. But we could spend 2 hours on just one of the topics and maybe not get everything we need out of it. So it's important that everyone can see it ahead of time and can ask a question of myself or of Adrian. And we'll work on making sure those things are answered just as best as you can to be prepared. Anyone have any comments or a different approach they can think of how to get through those items? We have a lot of things that are simply being communicated. Some of them are updates, like there's been an opportunity for the public to give feedback. So that's something that's included in there. We may have missed the deadlines, but that doesn't mean that those groups still wouldn't welcome input. And, we're residents first, we're members of a commission, and just being able to communicate those things. Good, very quiet today.
Holly, this is Harriet.
Hi, Harriet.
Regardless of the pause, can we at least either take a straw poll, or I'd like to make a motion that we vote, see if people are willing to, when funds may become available, vote towards an event for the ADA Red Sox. Anyone second that? Anybody can second it. They think it's a good
Second.
idea. Okay. And then we can have a discussion, just, you know, have a reading for everybody who's here on the call.
So what is your motion, Harriet? I didn't
My
hear.
motion is that it's a conditional motion that once we have things straightened out with the finances, but the key thing is who is in favor of and would like to vote in use of our funds for the ADA Red Sox game. That's what it is. And
That would be
and
contingent on the process.
yes, but fundamentally it's to say, if the finances are sorted out, who is in or supports the ADA Red Sox game. That's it.
So we have a first. We'll open it up for discussion. If anyone has any questions.
Holly, through the chair, I'm sorry, I think you need a second before you move, a second on the motion before you move to discussion.
Thank
if
you.
I remember correctly.
May I have a second on Harriet's motion? And for our new members, you simply raise your hand, and what you're doing is saying you support the motion. For those of you who don't study Robert's rules, parliamentary rules for meetings, I have several books. Part of that is the second.
Second.
Thank you. Ingrid is our second. I'll open it up to any questions, comments, deliberation. And then once we answer questions, we then put it to a vote and we record what the vote is. And in this case, this is a vote to use funds for this event, contingent on the process and the guidelines from the city. And again, as Sheila said, how we will work together. You know, it's not because the city doesn't want us to do these things. It's just following the very important rules. So who would like to be who has a question or any comment?
It looks like Mershi.
Michael.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. Thank you. For some reason, I can see a little group today. Michael, would you like to?
Well, so can you hear me? Because I'm on the train, so I just wanted to be.
Yes, we can.
You know, I hear you when you say the city's not telling us to not do these things, but I just do find it interesting that they did it right after we did this other one. And I personally would just like to see what they say about what we did, if there's anything, concerns they had before we actually vote to do it again. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Again, I don't want anyone to think that they're the big bad city. And I want to enforce that.
I don't think they're the big bad city. I'm not putting it on the city. I want to make sure we didn't do anything wrong. That's my concern, that they're looking at how we spent that money and that we didn't do anything wrong. That's why I'm concerned about putting this motion out
Both
there.
Adrian and I are giving you the no, we didn't do anything wrong. And yes, I agree exactly what you're saying, Mike, that we will get that guidance and information and know what to do next. And so thank you very much.
Can I just clarify, Mike?
Sure.
That what I said in the original motion that I said was, we're making a motion about our interest in proceeding when we have the financial piece clarified and understood. Does that make more sense, Mike?
It makes sense to me. I never understood the idea of making motions to possibly do something. I would rather do it when we can do it, but that's just my opinion.
Well, we don't know. This is Harriet. We don't know. This might be cleared up tonight or tomorrow. We don't know. So it's just, to me, it feels like, since it's very difficult to get blocks of tickets to these events, I think it's expeditious to do it, and nothing may happen, but at least we have had a quorum vote that says it's a good idea. So that's
1 second,
just my
Adrian.
opinion.
Of course.
I just want to, are there any other members who have questions or like to add to the discussion? Miss Adrian, please go ahead.
Sorry, Zoom's getting more slightly intuitive every day, and it's sort of good and
More coffee. We all just need more
bad.
coffee
I'm like,
very early.
I do want to, through the chair, Mike, I do want to address a little bit what you said, very much related to what Harriet just put forth. And I understand it. And first, I will confirm, all day, this pause is merely about, I guess the word is compliance and law and all these layers and layers, as Sheila pointed out, that exist when it comes to municipal funds. I'm sure Sheila can attest to this from her work with the city and her other professional work. You know, same thing, like I said earlier, you think you got everything lined up, and then there's an update, or DOR puts something else out, or, you know, something, a case study and so again, I want to be clear, it's about just making sure everything is lined up, and that, the city is in a place to protect and advocate for this commission to be able to utilize this money, because that is the goal, to utilize, and it's a good amount of money. And so I understand where Mike is coming from, that it can feel premature because, we're sitting here, we're not sure yet. And Mike, just to go back to a point you made about, it coming back, sort of almost right after the event that happened Monday. It's not, nobody did anything wrong, but now that finance has seen 2 of these events sort of happen, they just want to double check before you all work so hard and take your precious time to plan another and secure tickets and do all that work, because it is work to, there's multi-layers, and that way everything lines up. And with that said, Holly is correct that when we did the baseball game over the summer, that came together more quickly than it usually would. And there was like a deadline for an invoice or else, and it was also at the tail end of the budget season. And so I feel the intention of the chair and the vice chair is to just sort of set this and do what you can while you are waiting on a decision or more guidance. And that way, if it goes the way that I know you all hope it will go, Holly can start her process of talking, continuing the conversation with group sales and getting the tickets secured. And I can, along with RSJ and finance, start the process of getting the tickets covered from these funds. And that leaves more time for the fun planning of, where are we going to meet? How are people going to get there? Are we all going to wear the same color? Whatever. And so I assure you, Mike, that it's a pause just to make sure all the checks and we're dotting I's and doing all that. And again, as staff liaison, I do my best to advise. But I think as long as the motion at this point in time doesn't include a specific amount of money, just to Harriet's point that we want to pursue this on the contingency that it is okay to do that, that's perfectly fine. And just a reminder for our new members in terms of quorum and voting, if you're ever unsure, you always have the option to abstain, or you can say no. But you have that right as a person. But I will also comment, and I'm rambling and I'm sorry, but the tickets, I think we had 46 tickets last year. I can't remember. So another part of this is the ticket number is now increasing, which will add you've done it once before, some layers of work and a little bit more money. So Mike, does that help answer your questions?
No, it definitely answers my question, but just to share, my disability is anxiety, so I get anxious about stuff like this. So
Okay. That's
I support what everybody does. I just know I have to do what I have to do to make myself feel comfortable.
of course.
But I support whatever everybody decides. So yes, it was very helpful though. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'd just like to add, Michael, I really appreciate that you're sharing not only your questions and your concerns, but explaining how and why you need that type of explanation. Okay, I think that's really valuable, and I appreciate you discussing that with us and recognizing that. So thank you. Typically, we would put in a vote to a dollar amount, but we're not, because we are simply, and I do like what you said, Harriet, simply agreeing that we'd like to begin the process of that we're endorsing an event based on contingent to what the finance department comes back to us and says, this is the process. If there aren't any other questions or comments,
Sheila has had her hand up. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Sure.
I'd just like to add, I think there's no harm in taking that type of a vote, because it's just saying that we have the intention of doing this, and maybe that's helpful too for the finance people, so we have the time frame of what we plan to do. But perhaps maybe before the next meeting, maybe we try to straighten it out with the finance department and figure out it, and I'd be happy to take part in that. But that way, because I am going to expect that this is probably a relatively soon time frame when you would need to purchase the tickets, correct?
They'd probably give us like 4 weeks. I did negotiate last time and get it to something more reasonable. And again, the city bent over backwards for things like this. So yes, I appreciate your comments. And I do hope, I'm sure everyone at the city hopes that we'll have something with teeth in it that we can share by the 13th or before the 13th. So if there aren't any more questions or comments, I'm gonna ask us to vote. And I think I should vote by roll call, just because it's really hard to see hands and yes and no. And I'm just going by the first name on my list. Sheila?
Yes.
Yes, no, or okay. I'm a yes. Murshid?
Yes.
Helen?
Yes.
Sorry, my screen got tiny. Ingrid? Oh my gosh.
You're muted, Ingrid.
Yes.
Oh my God. Seriously? I can't see them. Okay, Nick,
Yes.
Harriet,
Yes.
Michael. Mike, do you prefer Mike or Michael?
Mike, and I'm going to abstain on this one.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks, Mike. And Deborah.
Yes.
Did I miss anyone, Adrian?
Yourself?
No, she got herself. Did you get Murshid?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
So we have one abstain, the rest are yes, and the motion passes. Unless we have, sorry, it's loud. Unless we have any other questions or comments, I'm going to motion to end the meeting. May I have a second?
A
Second.
We have 2 seconds.
Second.
All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes. The ayes have it. We are convened. Thank you all for making time for this, and especially Adrian, thank you for making time in your schedule so last minute. Much appreciated. Be safe on the train, Michael. Michael, yes, Mike. Bye now.
Bye. Have
Bye-bye.
a good weekend.
Thank you.
Aye.